Hello, I'm Goodhall Harris, and this is my presentation on social networking and technology in radio. In this presentation, I'll be talking about social networking and why it's important, how it's changed radio, and the ramifications that social network has in radio. We'll also be looking into the BBC and the relevance it has in the new media age. I'll be looking into prosumers and how they impact radio. And finally, I'll be looking at some ethical issues that have occurred due to social networking. First off, we have why is social networking important? With social networking, there are various new ways for people to interact with each other. With the majority of people in the world on Facebook and Twitter, these websites enable you to contact anyone at any time, like texting from your mobile, but free of charge. These websites are all useful for businesses where the public can easily contact the business and also keep up to date by looking at their updates on Twitter and Facebook. Social networking is also good for generating hype with radio presenters and guests saying when they'll be on air, so people know when to tune in, and they could also get a glimpse of what will be on the radio show. And also through Twitter and Facebook, the listeners can talk about what they liked about the show, which can end up getting more listeners for that show. And now we look at how social media has actually changed radio itself. We can see that it has changed for the better, with radio stations now able to get more immediate responses from the listeners through social networking. This can also help with competitions, where now they can do a competition in one show with a quick response from the audience, whereas competitions used to have been spread out over a couple of days because the listeners would have had to send in postcards through the mail, which would have taken more time to actually get to the station. Social media now makes radio a lot more personal as well, as listeners can interact with the station and the presenter through Twitter and Facebook. The listeners can also keep up to date with their favourite shows by following the presenters on Twitter. The listener can now also have a sense of co-presence when listening to the radio with the help of social media. They can be listening to the radio station, and then they could be on Twitter and Facebook updating their statuses. And if they use a certain hashtag or they link to a certain presenter or station, the presenter on the show can now see what people are tweeting to them, and the presenters can then reply on air, make it feel like the listeners are part of a community. And now we get the ramifications of social networking when it comes to the radio industry. The main issues seem to come from the radio stations when there is no social media manager, and the control of the social media has been left to the producers and the presenters. This can be seen as a bad thing, as they already have loads of work to do on their own, and they have to get on with that. And this could also lead to the stations neglecting their social network. Also, with no social media manager, the presenters and producers won't know what types of content to share with the listeners, or how to interact with the listeners and engage with the audience through this kind of medium. Now we're on to the BBC and the relevance it has in the new media age. The BBC are very productive when it comes to their content on the internet. They share their content through apps which can be used on smartphones and tablets. They update their Twitter and Facebook regularly so people know what's going on with the station. They also put their best bits of their shows into podcasts which are free to download off iTunes, so people just download it for free. They also take advantage of their iPlayer, where they put up any of the shows that have been broadcasted in the past 7 days onto their website, where anyone can access it anytime they want. The BBC also has a future media department, which come up with new ways to broadcast their information. For example, in the past, they've had teletext, where they put up the latest news updates through the TV. They also now have the red button, which has kind of replaced teletext in the way that they have all the news updates on there. and they could also watch other different programs on there. And they also came up with the iPlayer itself, and like most of these things have actually been taken on by other companies like Sky, who has the red button, and ITV and Channel 4, who also use an iPlayer. Now we have the prosumers. The prosumers are both the producers and consumers of content, because anyone can create content in the form of podcasts and videos. And because anyone can do it, there's a massive variety of content on the internet for people to download, and there'll always be something for everyone. Whereas usually in the radio station you just have the producer who broadcasts content to the consumer, and it'll be limited to the station and what they broadcast. One of the main problems social media has had is jigsaw identification. Jigsaw identification is where people can identify someone through different news sources. They can go to one site and they'll have information on a news story there, but they go to like a newspaper and there's other information there on that story, and like both of them will have like details on a person, but two different details. People would match these two details up and they'll actually find out who